Hello, folks, and welcome back to Jim's Movie Musings. Did you miss me? Well, I missed you guys too. And one of the reasons I've been away for so long is that I really didn't have anything to review, and I had long planned to review the movie that I am about to review right now, which is Netflix's The Adam Project, starring Ryan Reynolds and directed by Shawn Levy. Now, when the trailer for this dropped, I have to say I was extremely interested, especially when Ryan Reynolds started hyping this movie up as his love letter to the Amblin movies of the 1980s. For those of you who don't know, Amblin is Steven Spielberg's production company, and it is responsible for some, well, classics as the Back to the Future trilogy and some lesser known movies like Batteries Not Included. It's a bold claim, especially considering that a few years ago, director J.J. Abrams made his own love letter to those 80s movies. A movie which was actually produced by Amblin Studios, Super 8, and at least in my opinion, that didn't go over so well. So it was with cautious optimism that I downloaded and watched The Adam Project. Now, The Adam Project, as any of you who have seen the trailer will know, is a time travel movie. It starts with 12-year-old Adam Reed, played by phenomenal newcomer Walker Scobell, who does an incredible Ryan Reynolds impression.
I know, you'd think I'd be better at it by now.
I don't understand you.
Dad would.
I miss him too, you know.
Living in 2022, his life kind of sucks because his dad has only just died about a year and a half prior. And he's having a hard time coping because he's always getting bullied in school. And he's not giving his mom, played by Jennifer Garner, an easy time of it either. Now, if he thinks his life is unpleasant, well, wait until his older self shows up from 2050. With a time traveling jet and with people who want to kill him on his tail. Things are about to get a lot more interesting for Adam Reed, both the young version and the older one, played, of course, by Ryan Reynolds. And that's about all I'm going to give you by way of synopsis. Suffice it to say that Zoe Saldana figures in the movie, as does Catherine Keener is the bad guy, and Mark Ruffalo shows up quite a bit later as Ryan Reynolds' dad. In terms of plot, well, it actually does harken back to those 80s movies, but not the 80s movie that Ryan Reynolds claims, unless we're talking about Back to the Future here, but that's kind of a whole other level. The 80s movie that this film actually evokes is not an Amblin movie, but rather it's a Disney movie called Flight of the Navigator, starring basically nobody I care to remember, but which was very memorable because it also involved a spaceship or flying machine that also happened to be a time traveling device. And while the Flight of the Navigator was decidedly less violent, if I can recall, than the Adam Project, which is firmly in PG-13 territory, albeit there's a lot of bloodless violence, the vibe is so similar. Vibe is so very similar. And well, how do I assess it? It's got all that you look for in a Ryan Reynolds movie. It's got his snark. It's got him mugging mercilessly, something he didn't get to do in the Deadpool movies, of course. And well, it's got some pretty respectable action and pretty respectable visual effects. Okay, it doesn't have much by way of logic. I mean, that's just the thing with these time travel movies. You sit still for about a minute and you can pick apart all the plot holes and inconsistencies. There's no point in trying to find logic to a movie like this. So don't even try. Just sit back and enjoy it. And yes, I guarantee you will have some fun. I mean, between the two of them, Reynolds and Levy know how to push some serious nostalgia buttons, at least in this Gen-Xer. And it works. Okay, and it really, really helps that they have a winning newcomer in the form of Walker Scobell, who's the lead character, incidentally, a lot more than Ryan Reynolds is. So without him, this enterprise would fail. And the good news is that, well, he basically steps up. It's his first major role, but he makes it work. But the funny thing about this movie is, okay, and the thing is, it's in firm 7.5 territory, or 7 to 7.5 territory. I'll decide by the end of this review. The funny thing about this movie is that as much as Netflix has hyped it as a spiritual sequel to all those 80s Amblin movies, it actually highlights a flaw in its, well, basically in its entire business model, because people look very fondly upon those 80s Amblin movies because they saw them in movie theaters.
Wow.
And Netflix is just, bringing it to people on their phones and their laptops and their TVs. Hey, not all of us have freaking huge screen TVs, Netflix. And guess what? Theatrical is back. Okay, I mean, or have you guys not seen the numbers for the Batman and Uncharted and Spider-Man No Way Home? Okay, you can't promise us an 80s extravaganza and then just keep it on TV. I mean, sure, there are those of us who look back fondly on watching movies on Betamax.
Wow.
Because that's the closest thing to compare this to. Freaking Betamax. Is that how you want your big action movie to be remembered, Netflix? I mean, seriously? Yeah. I started this channel championing movies on streaming and home video, but now that theaters are opening up, I'm starting to really wonder if that's how I want to, if that's the direction I want to continue in. Because quite frankly, it feels silly to talk about a Netflix movie as the biggest thing that you can see nowadays when there's so much bigger stuff in movie theaters, not just now, but in the months to come. Okay, so but to get back to the Adam Project, perfectly decent, serviceable action comedy, decent special effects, decent if kind of expected acting from Ryan Reynolds. I mean, he basically just plays Ryan Reynolds again, and another kid plays Ryan Reynolds. It's a good time. It's a good time. It's a good 2 and a bit hours in front of your, no, not even 2 hours. It's a good 100 minutes or so in front of your laptop or your TV or your phone. It'd be even nicer by way of an 80s callback if we could see it on the big screen, but Netflix is Netflix, whatever, right? So, okay. So is it 7 or 7.5? Well, I gotta say, Ryan Reynolds seems to be very comfortably settling into his formula. So he did this sort of thing with Free Guy. He did this thing with Deadpool, albeit with a lot more swear words. And he does it again here. I guess for providing us with an entertaining spectacle, he deserves a good score. But then for leaning a bit too heavily into Ryan Reynoldsing, I'm giving this film a 7. Yeah. I mean, look, it's not like I expect Ryan Reynolds to go all serious on us. No, I mean, God, no. But, I still think he could do a little bit better than to just play himself for another 2 hours. Maybe he could try a little bit harder next time. I don't know. But the point is, whether he's trying or not, it just feels like a little bit. The movie is basically an 80s movie with lots of Ryan Reynoldsing, if I may coin a term. And for me, that's worth a 7 out of 10. A decent find, a decent film, one that's worth catching if you have a little over 100 minutes to spare. All right? And that's it. I hope you enjoyed this review. And I intend to come back with many, many more. Right. See you guys.